Third time's a charm. Welcome to the Grap Up, your monthly blast of cold takes in the world of professional wrestling. Available everywhere good podcasts are sold. I am the intrepid traveler, Mark Robinson. With me is the editor over at the Wrestling Observer. He is Brian Rose. My microphone's working. Your microphone's working.
I think
Let's see if we can get.
everything's good now.
Let's see if we can get more than 5 minutes into this goddamn show.
Yeah.
I know how you are. The audience, they're gonna have to find out another time. CM
Yeah.
Punk got
I'm
fired.
good.
Let's go.
He
Let's
did.
do this. Jesus.
He did.
Yeah, no, let's
Yeah.
take a few minutes here. Let's just unwind for a second. Yeah, August was a manic month for both yourself and I for different reasons. I was gone for most of August. I was in Romania, and then I came home. Went straight to England for all in afterwards. So I was looking at the production notes and it's like I actually haven't seen a lot of wrestling in August, which then also was the reminder that I did see SummerSlam, which happened at the beginning of August. Which do you
I've
remember a thing
completely
about that
forgotten
show?
about.
Yeah.
All I know is that Jimmy turned on Jay. That's like the big storyline.
I think even without everything else, that was a fairly forgettable show. I'd say actually, you know what, let's skim through that in 5-10 minutes and be done
Yeah.
with it. Because SummerSlam from the hell's the name of the arenas? The Ford Field. That's the one.
Ford Field in Detroit. Yeah.
Yes, which was the host of WrestleMania 23,
Yeah.
the car WrestleMania, as I call it.
Yeah.
And this show, which looked fairly decent on paper, ended up being a bit of a dud. Which
Yeah.
is a bit of a surprise because WWE, their premium live events this year have actually been fairly decent.
Yeah. I mean, they've been fairly good. Payback had two really good matches, and I'd say Payback's more memorable than SummerSlam, which had a more marquee lineup, and I'm trying to struggle to think about SummerSlam, and the only thing I can remember is Jimmy turning on Jay, and
Yeah,
that main event which was very boring.
yes. I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that you can see with the kind of production and pacing of the like B tier PLEs as we're calling them
Mm.
now, they tend to be about 6 matches long,
Yeah,
if that. Maybe up to 7. So you get a fairly condensed show that even if you've got like a bunch of bad matches, the show itself can't overstay its welcome because there's just not enough matches for it to happen.
yeah,
And I think you saw with SummerSlam that when you've got a longer show and you have a bunch of bad matches, it can kill the pacing, and can just kind of kill the vibe altogether. And the simple fact as well is even if that show had been pretty good, that main event was
that was boring.
one of
It was like a
the
30-minute match and just long periods of Roman Reigns in control, brawling into the crowd. So Sikoa got involved, of course, and then the finish, which was whatever. They have a long-term plan for this storyline, and Jimmy, I think the next week or the week after, Jimmy, no, Jay quit. Now he's on Raw. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking that the WrestleMania program is going to be Jamie versus Jay. I think that's why they're on separate brands, because they're doing that. The thing about WWE now is that they are doing long-term storytelling. So over the next few months, we're going to be seeing Jay on Raw, and eventually it's going to lead to Jay versus Jimmy. The thing is, I don't know about Jimmy. Jimmy is not like Jay. It's become very clear that Jay is a main event level promo. Jimmy is not.
Yeah, the problem
So
though
that's going
is
to be
is
weird.
is I don't think Jay is a main event worker, as we saw in this match.
No,
Which
I
isn't
don't know.
which
Yeah.
isn't as big of a crux in this company, considering you see the kind of reaction that LA Knight is getting at the moment, which we
Yeah.
spoke about last month. Someone who certainly has a main event look and charisma and promo about him, but as we saw with the Miz match at Payback, not exactly a workhorse, but you know,
I didn't hate that match. It just went on
it,
forever.
It was a 2-star special.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be very kind, you could say a gentleman's 3, but I wouldn't be kind, and I'll settle for
Mm,
2. Thank you.
I actually probably would go 3, but I'm not, maybe a little bit below 3.
Mm.
The work was okay. I'm not going to say it was good. It was fine, but they just wrestled forever, and they got too much time.
Yeah, yeah. On this show, though, very kind of quick notes. Logan Paul defeated Ricochet in 18 minutes, in which between this and the Cody Brock match, you could argue for what was the best match on the show. Logan Paul
Yeah.
continues to deliver. Ricochet is a workhorse. He's not a ring general, but you can definitely get him to hold a match like this together. And there was a couple of spots here and there where it went a bit sketchy, but for again someone who's I think 5 matches into his career,
Yeah.
you're doing all right
Logan
here.
Paul's incredible. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I was kind of expecting more from these two
Is that so?
because they kept pushing this is going to be the most viral match in a SummerSlam history or whatever. Then they go out there and everything they do looks good. It was a good match. I'm not going to say it wasn't a good match. It was a good match. But in terms of like big viral moments, I didn't really see anything there. I mean, they did some stuff, but it wasn't like anything like, wow, I remember this a month later.
The problem
No,
with that,
I
and
don't.
something that WWE in general very like a very difficult or to comprehend, is that when something goes viral, it's not that it intended to go viral. Viral things
It's
are organic
viral
in their
things
design.
are organic, and
Yes,
you can't create a viral moment. A viral moment
exactly.
comes organically,
Like the
and there wasn't anything in that match that was viral worthy.
Yeah, like the Ricochet Will Ospreay match from the Best of the Super Juniors a number of years ago. While I'm sure they were thinking about that sequence and the fact that it would probably, garner attention, which it sure as hell did,
Hmm.
it went viral organically. Now, in fairness,
Yes.
Twitter back in the day, which was actually Twitter, you could actually get shit to go viral as long as you didn't have to pay £8 a month for it.
Yeah.
Um, but that went the route, and there are a number of reasons why that thing went viral like it did, because you had your fucking naysayers and everything in between. So that was always going to happen. But WWE are so like feeling, and this has been going on for years. This idea that they think they can control the narrative and can control what goes viral and whatnot. But it's the same thing when they had fucking the Edge and Randy Orton match a couple of years ago, the greatest match ever. Like I don't think, well, I certainly for me at least, was not going into that match thinking I was about to see fucking something that was going to match, like your Kobashi's and Masawa style matches of the world. It was a perfectly decent match with two workers that went a little bit long and was in the confines of the not even the Thunderdome, but pre Thunderdome pandemic, and just there was no way in hell that was ever even going to come close to match of the year. So the idea they were going to call this like the most viral match ever, I ignored that for the most part and just went in hoping to see a decent match, which I
It
thought it
was.
was.
It was.
Yeah. Cody Rhodes beat Brock Lesnar in 17 minutes 35 seconds after having the shit kicked out of him for about the first 16 minutes of this match.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this was. I was a little bit underwhelmed with this feud as a whole, but I think that they managed to bring it together at the end here and told a very simple story. But you know what? Sometimes simple is better, and this got
Yes.
the outcome that it was meant to achieve. So thumbs up here.
Yes. This was the best match of the show, I thought. It was a great dramatic match because Lesnar destroyed him for a lot of it. Rhodes did a great job of selling. Then when it was time to come back, I was into the match because I wanted to see Cody win, and he did. And that's how wrestling should work. It's really simple. You want to create a story in a match where you want one person to win and one person to lose, and WWE is very good at doing that. Maybe a little bit underrated in that kind of storytelling in their matches. And I thought Cody did an excellent job here. I thought Brock Lesnar did a great job here. The Kimura spot towards the end I thought was really good because it called back to their previous matches. Everything was. I really liked this match. It was a nice ending to a story. That was never really explained. Like, did we ever really get an explanation as to why Brock Lesnar turned on Cody Rhodes? I don't think we ever did beyond Brock Lesnar wanted to be in the main event of whatever WrestleMania or whatever they said, and that kind of seemed weird.
He's a big angry Hulk. That's it.
Yes,
That's
he's
all
a
you need.
big he's mad. That's why.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
There were certainly some threads here and there that could have been tied together, but I still think that
yeah.
if you just try and keep it as simple as you can, and just going by like the match structure, I think that this accomplished what it needed to. And they've managed to keep the momentum with Cody fairly kind of fairly well put together, and he's not as hot as he was pre-Mania, but like I don't think that would be
He's
possible at
still one
all.
of the hottest acts in that company.
Yeah, and do you know why?
That's
Because he doesn't lose. He wins
no.
matches. It's
He
very
wins a lot of his matches.
yeah.
When they don't go well, maybe he can win on. No, it's he wins his matches most of the time, and
Now I
that's
will
why
say
he's over.
I'm not sure about putting him on the next PLE in a talking segment with Grayson Waller, but who
They
am I
seem
to
to be
say?
very slow in finding his next program. They
Yeah.
seem to take this month after SummerSlam just, we're just kind of going with the flow. I'm not really sure why.
I mean, it's look, if they're planning on doing Cody and Roman next year, which for a start, let's not even just make the assumption.
I'm.
Yeah, you
I
can
think that's
stretch
the
out
match.
Cody for at least the next couple of months because he's not really got anything to do till the Rumble. So,
My thought was he was going to challenge Cena at Payback to a match at Fastlane.
ah,
They could still do that,
they
but
could, they
I
could.
don't know. Is there like anyone obvious that they could build? Maybe Drew when he turns. So
Well,
it seems like on TV that Drew's turning eventually.
yeah, yeah. The Cody Cena thing might be a struggle just because Cena, I think, is there primarily to keep SmackDown up while Roman's
Yeah,
doing whatever. Um, so yeah, Drew. I mean, it's if they want to sacrifice Drew, but I don't think long term Drew is the plan. Um,
no,
so yeah, that is certainly one way you can go, and I think those two could have a decent enough match to keep Cody going.
yeah,
We'll see. LA Knight won the Slim Jim SummerSlam Battle Royale. I mean, there was only ever going to be one winner for this, and hey,
yeah,
WWE listened to the audience and went with it. So good job
they,
there.
yeah. I mean, it was clear that LA Knight needed a big win because he had gotten organically over, and they gave it to him. So congrats to him. I mean, LA Knight is a good promo. I thought his promos in the last month were pretty good. I don't know about in ring, but
He's
if he's oh
perfectly
he's perfectly fine.
yes.
He's not stinking up the joint.
No.
So I guess he's fine to go with. I don't know how far you can go with him, but I mean, every time I see him going out there, he gets this huge ovation. So clearly he's over.
The
We'll see
thing
how it
with
goes.
the thing with him that I would be curious about, because there's been discussion recently about the whole MJF and Adam Cole segments and that storyline, and the
Yeah.
fact that the storyline is over in the building in terms of people are chanting and popping for kangaroo kick and double clothesline and that what and all that. As far as I can see, certainly from when I was at Mania, they the merch for Better Than You Baby seems to be doing pretty well. I did see quite a few shirts out and about in Wembley. But the problem that they've got is that like the actual kind of tickets for their shows, like Dynamite, is not doing too hot at the moment, and certainly like the kind of pre-sales for the next couple of Dynamites and whatnot, and that includes the Grand Slam, are pretty woeful. So while that thing is doing business in some areas, one very significant area which is actually getting people to come to the building, they're struggling with. And the thing I think about in terms of LA Knight is he doesn't really have to worry about that because WWE as a whole is kind of a hot product at the moment. But with him, I'm curious about like now I haven't been keeping track on like his ratings, how his segments do, but I'm very curious about like is he selling merch? Because you could argue he's like the second or third most over babyface on SmackDown. And typically, your baby faces that are over, you would hope that they're selling merch. So I would be curious to see if he is over because of that, or he is over just because he has a catchphrase. And let me fucking tell you, so many people wanted to chant that catchphrase at Wembley. So
Yeah.
which I'll get to that, but whoosh. Shayna Baszler defeated Ronda Rousey in one of the worst matches of the year. Why was this
Yeah.
MMA rules? Pro wrestling fans do not give a shit about MMA rules.
No,
Just
they
make it a
tried to
submission
work
match.
an MMA style match and no one was into it.
Just
No one.
make it a goddamn submission match.
And then they didn't even do a good job with the MMA match because it was like Shayna threw a kick and Ronda sold it like an animal had dropped on her like it was a Looney Tunes cartoon. Well, also the weird spot where Baszler got injured and instead of stopping the fight like they would do in any MMA match, they had a medical come out and check on her. And then of course she wasn't injured and it was not a good match on any kind of level. It was just a really weird match that didn't get over, that died a death in front of that crowd. It kind of just summarized Rousey's second run with the company,
Yeah.
where
I,
nothing seemed to go right. She wasn't a good promo. She wasn't good in the ring. None of her feuds were good. Everything seemed to just not work out for her in this second run, and this match pretty much summed it up.
I this second run of Ronda Rousey, like I I'm trying to think kind of ranking wise where this sits in terms of like the worst runs of a high level superstar in wrestling as a whole. Um because just everything about this second run,
Yeah.
between the match quality, her promos,
And she
the
didn't know whether she wanted to be a
reactions,
face or a heel one week or the next.
every single
It was
aspect
really
of this
weird.
has just been a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And
It
some of that
seems to
falls.
be like a thing of she wanted to do her stuff and she constantly clashed with the company over what she wanted to do, and as a result we saw what we saw, and a lot of it was just haphazard all over the place stuff. It wasn't good.
But even without all of that, the work was just not there. And not to say
No.
that she was the greatest kind of female wrestler we'd ever seen, but there was at least
I mean that first run was pretty good for the most part. I mean, it was a
there
big
was
WrestleMania main event.
exactly there was the presence, there was the aura, there was
Yeah.
the sort of in-ring charisma that just wasn't here this time.
No.
And I do wonder if she kind of saw the writing on the wall in terms of just the complete non-reactions she was getting, and just kind of
Yeah.
decided, you know what, let's just fucking bow out now and not drag this thing out any longer. I would be very surprised if she comes back. Maybe a one-off appearance, but
Maybe.
this was
I don't know.
just not meant to be.
Now there's all sorts of rumors about her going back to UFC after this, and I don't know about that either, but
All right.
I don't
Okay.
know. Her I don't know. I don't know what you do with her. Um I mean, this run said a lot. Just maybe WWE isn't the right place for her. Maybe it's
Yeah.
somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not work. It didn't work out this time.
No. A match that also didn't work out as well as I would have hoped. Gunther defeated Drew McIntyre, the returning Drew McIntyre,
Yeah.
in 13 minutes, 40 seconds. Now, these two were involved with Sheamus in one of the matches of the year at WrestleMania this year. Just a tremendous triple threat. And you would think that these two men, kind of big, meaty men, slapping meat style sort of match would be a great time. And it just was. it was just there. It was just okay.
I thought this was very good, but it could have gone longer. And I think it would have been an excellent match had it gone a few more minutes. Like they were just getting into it when the finish happened, and
I just
it started off slow.
yeah, I just feel like if these two were to have this match 100 times, this was the worst version of those 100 matches. It just, yeah, it took forever to get going, and then by the time it did get going, the match was already over. And just surprising, like even Gunther and Chad Gable had the
That
match
was a
on
great
Raw
match.
this week, which was way more dynamic, had way more
Yeah.
to it. It felt like the crowd was way more invested as well.
Yeah.
And that match was actually 2 minutes shorter than this one. Or no, actually, I think it might have been longer, but I think the actual feed of what we saw was about 11 minutes. Um, but it came together. It peaked at the right moment. Gable came across as more of a baby face, I guess. So yeah, it's just one of these things where these two have so much of a better match in them. But on this night, it just wasn't meant to be, which is unfortunate
No.
because it's SummerSlam, which is where you want it to come together.
Yeah. Should have just gotten more time. I could see why people would be like, well, this isn't like the best we've seen from Gunther or Drew McIntyre, and it did start out slow. I will say that. And if you've seen these two wrestle, you know exactly what happened in that match. And I don't know. I do think if it had gone another 5 minutes, it would have been. I think a lot of people would have thought it would have been one of the better matches on the show. But as a result, it was just fine to me. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was bad or anything, but it was fine. It was good. I would say.
Seth Rollins defeated Finn Balor to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. This was a rematch from Money in the Bank, a match that I was kind of lethargic on. This was better. This was a better version of that match. I don't know if it was just the time zone and jet lag or whatnot that was keeping them back at Money in the Bank. But this was a better version of that match. They, the last couple of minutes, there was all the shenanigans with Judgment Day and the miscommunication between Damian Priest and Finn, which played into the finish. And my one issue with all of this is that the whole Judgment Day storyline it's just the bloodline, but a little bit more
It
goth.
is.
And I've
Yeah, it
got one
is.
bloodline angle, and that one hasn't even fucking resolved yet. So I don't need another. But you know what? They're on Raw, and they need something for it. So here we are.
Yeah. Um. Sorry, I just noticed Slack got new redesign. What's that? This match was a lot better than their match at Money in the Bank. I mean, I remember seeing that match, and I'm like, I expected so much more between these two. And now SummerSlam they had a much better match. It was way more heated. Um, I thought that Finn Balor should have won this. I thought it would have played into the storyline a little bit more dissension between Finn and Damian Priest. I mean, that's a long-term storyline. Another one between Finn and Damian Priest, and it's like that eventually they're going to do the turn because they've been teasing it a lot in the last couple of months. Um, I don't know. I thought this was very good. I thought Balor should have won. He didn't, and now Rollins is feuding with Nakamura, and that match at Payback, I did not like.
Hmm.
This was good. This was definitely a much better match, and I do get what you're saying about the Judgment Day basically being the bloodline. But the bloodline is one of the hottest acts WWE's had in years. So it kind of makes sense for them to copy and paste the Judgment Day stuff with the Bloodline stuff. It makes sense in that way, and you could kind of tell that it's basically a copy and paste job. But if it's working, you should kind of go with that. And yeah,
Yeah, no, the logic is sound. I don't think that there's one kind of big difference, and that is the fact that for large portions of their run, The Judgment Day have typically been on the losing end of their matches, and at times have been treated like just complete fucking dorks.
Yeah.
They've turned this around a little bit, but there still, it doesn't take away the fact that, you know, Finn lost both of these matches. Priest is the Money in the Bank winner. I mean, Rhea is the thing that kind of ties all of it together, to be quite honest. Like without them, I don't think that that act is anywhere near what it is.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess you could say in similar fashions to Sami Zayn. Um, you know, I had heard and I kind of thought to myself as well that maybe they'll do the thing where Finn wins the match and then Priest cashes in, and then that's, you know, how you do the split from there. But no, they are going to drag this thing out. I don't think it's, I mean, you can see in the ratings as well that it's not as over. Obviously, they're on different networks, which plays a large part of
Yeah.
it. But I think it's just a thing to kind of hold them over more than a thing that's like doing business in the way that the bloodline angle is. Just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts.
I do agree it's not as hot, but it is kind of hot. I mean, Dominic Mysterio has been appearing on NXT, and NXT's ratings have shot up as a result of people like Dominic Mysterio appearing on there. So I mean, they are kind of over, and it is driving the ratings a little bit, not as much as SmackDown, where the Bloodline is, and also it's network TV versus cable TV, and cable TV is not going to get the kind of ratings that broadcast TV can get. So there is that difference too.
Yeah.
But I do think that they are a draw in a way. Maybe not as much as last month or the month before, but they still are, I think, one of the driving forces of that show. And I think as a result, we're going to get, they're pretty much on every segment every week on Raw. So, I mean, it's not slowing down anytime soon. They have all the titles now, I think, except for the world title. So we'll see where that goes from there.
Yeah. Yep. Bianca Belair defeated Asuka and Charlotte Flair to win back her women's championship, which she then held for about 2 minutes before Io Sky cashed in a segment which was just all, and like the Io Sky cash in is the kind of epitome of the problem with the Money in the Bank concept in 2023, where, you know, like the crowd is cheering, Michael Cole is losing his mind, and Io Sky is a heel. Like, she is a heel.
Yeah, like they
And
should be putting over, why did she cash in at this moment? And instead,
yes,
everybody's like, you're losing their minds.
yeah. Like,
Or
do you
this
remember?
heel win.
Do you remember when Edge cashed in, like that first cash in?
Oh,
The commentators were not
yeah,
cheering
yeah.
about like
No.
how this was a, you know, like, I mean, obviously it was a big
I
thing in the
mean, if
moment.
I remember correctly, John Cena had just gone through an Elimination Chamber match.
Certainly
Edge
did.
cashed in, and that's why he's called the Ultimate Opportunist, because that's what he did, and he
Yes.
speared and pinned Cena, and the announcers were not putting over how cool this was. It was
No,
like,
they were not.
Ed, why did you do that, Edge? You know, I can't
So
believe Edge did that.
yeah,
Stuff like that.
like it makes sense for the heels to be the ones that cash in,
Yeah,
but you've got to fucking treat it like you have to present it as a heel cashing in. So, you know, that, and the fact as well is, I just, there are some wrestlers where I'm fine with them cashing in and doing it the cheap way. Like The Miz makes perfect sense. Edge's first
sure.
cash in makes perfect sense. The second Punk cash in, and the way that that worked into the angle with Jeff Hardy, all for it. But there are so many where, like, the Biggie was like, he should have had just, you know, cashed it in but said, hey, I want a match in like 2 weeks time or something like that.
Yeah.
And Io Sky is such a tremendous professional wrestler that, like, you can build it up into, you know, her face turn or whatever the case may be, but to win it this way, it's just it's not for me. It's not for me. And the thing out of this as well is, like, you know, you've had Bianca Belair, who's been the, you know, the workhorse of Raw for the last year as the women's champion, and all I can see out of this is just her turning heel because she's going to whine, she's going to complain, which she'd be justified to do because of how she lost the match. And the crowd's just going to turn on her, and it's just such a wasted investment that you put in the last year to make her one of the kind of faces of the company. So yeah, everything about this was backwards and just annoyed me. And the match itself just fucking, it was 20 minutes long, but it actually in some ways felt longer than the main event. It just went on and on and on and on.
I thought it was a very good match, actually.
Oh.
So I guess we saw different matches, but I just thought the finish was really clever with Bianca Belair rolling up Asuka as she was in the figure eight. But of course, the overall story of that show, of that angle, is Io Sky winning the title, and you know the eventual match is going to be Charlotte Flair versus Bianca Belair. So that is also the long term story being told there. So Bianca Belair is taking time off reportedly. She has not been on for the last couple of weeks. I don't know when she'll be back, but when she is back, I will assume that it's her and Io Sky, and she will regain the title, and that will eventually lead to WrestleMania with her and Charlotte Flair. So they are telling a story, and I thought this match was very good. Not the best match on the show, but I guess I liked it more than you did.
Yeah, this match just didn't do anything for me. I found it to drag, honestly. Just yeah, it just annoyed me endlessly. So sorry, not sorry. And then the main event, which also dragged and went forever, and was just the
Oh,
epitome of everything that's wrong with a Roman main event. Just
yeah.
awful, 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 awful.
Roman Reigns main events are hit and misses because you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see a very long heat spot where Roman is in control and he cuts his monologues and beats up his opponents. And we saw a lot of that in this match. And just it went on forever. It never ended and it wasn't good. And there are Roman Reigns matches this year that are excellent because of that kind of stuff and how the story is told. And there are matches where it just doesn't work because there's no heat to it. It's just Roman Reigns cutting his monologue, and it's not compelling. And this match fell into the latter category.
Yeah, and I don't know, between him and Jay and the fact that the way that I thought the build for this match was really well put together. Jay picking up the win at Money in the Bank, leading into this. Like I thought as a whole, the booking made sense, was logical, and that kind of push to bring Jay up to that next level. All of that had no issues with any of that. But there was a level of intensity that there were glimmers of in the match, but this should have been just a violent brawl. I feel like if this match had been able to take place in AEW, I feel like that violence would have been there in a way that, not to say that they were handicapped because of the company they work for, but it felt like it was handicapped to some degree from ever getting to the level that it should have for what this build was, what this feud is made up of. So yeah, just a very disappointing end to a fairly disappointing show.
I wouldn't say overall it was a disappointing show because of the Cody and Brock match. I thought that was a really great match, and there was
The show had its moments. The show had its
there's
moments.
also some other good stuff on the show. I wouldn't call it like a thumbs down or anything, but it did end on a very boring note that kind of just took the show down a notch.
All right, CM Punk. So CM Punk was fired from AEW last Saturday, hours before Collision. For anyone living under a rock that wasn't aware, there was an altercation between him and Jungle Boy Jack Perry just before basically All in London started, or just as the show started, because basically between Jungle Jack's match and CM Punk's match, basically during Jungle Jack's match, he went through a windscreen of a car, looked into the camera, was basically saying it's real glass, cry me a river. Which refers to a backstage, not incident, but a disagreement or an issue with Punk and
Disagreement
Jack.
sounds about right.
where Jack managed to get it approved to use glass, but CM Punk was like, we don't do that on Collision. And obviously, Jack had decided to keep that grudge and air out his grievances in front of 81,000 people, which Punk did not approve of. They got into a skirmish right in front of Tony Khan, good idea, and a bunch of other production people who were put in the line of fire. They were both suspended indefinitely on Monday, and then 4 or 5 days later, CM Punk was fired. So I bring it to you. Are you surprised by the firing? Are you disappointed by the firing? Like, where are you feeling on this? Because I have seen every single goddamn take under the sun for the last week, from the most feverish and fervent CM Punk defenders to the most, heated CM Punk haters, and every take in between. And let's get one more take, Brian. Let's get yours.
Okay. No, I'm not surprised, because this was a matter of time, because CM Punk went on live TV last year and called out Hangman Page in a segment where he was not scheduled to do that. He went into business for himself. And if we know one thing about CM Punk in the last year, is that he holds grudges, and he does not handle criticism well. And he has a big chip on his shoulder as a result. And after that fight, and after he was suspended last year's fight with the Elite, it was in everyone's best interest that they get everybody together and work things out. That did not happen. Instead, they created a situation where the CM Punk show can be on Saturdays, and everyone he's friendly with this week can be on that show, and everyone who is not friendly with him can be on the other show. That does not create a good environment. That does not create a positive environment where people can work together. Now, Jack Perry saying that on TV, unprovoked, I can see why he would be upset about that. There's a lot of situations here where people spoke out on stuff CM Punk said, and CM Punk had a right to be upset about that. Sure. I think everybody can see that. Now, did CM Punk handle it the right way? Obviously not. Obviously, we've seen over the last couple of years that when CM Punk is called out, he feels the need to go out and handle receipts, whether that's saying stuff on Instagram, saying stuff on ESPN, saying stuff on live TV, anywhere, backstage. And it was not creating a great environment. And all this was going to lead to what happened that day. And it did. And I was surprised in the sense that they fired him, because Tony Khan could have easily just gone, you know what, this is what we're sticking with. We're going to stick with CM Punk, and if he wants to do this, then he can do this. And he didn't do that. To his credit. To his credit, the thing at All In was the final straw, and CM Punk was cut as a result. Now, I liked CM Punk's run in AEW. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I liked his matches on Collision. I like Collision as a whole. I thought it was a much different show than Dynamite, and Dynamite sometimes is like all in your face with 10,000 things going on, and sometimes it's a little too much to take. Collision is a much slower down show, more focused on wrestling and stuff. And I did like that. Some of my favorite matches of the year happened on Collision. Now, I don't know what else I could say about this. It's a very unfortunate situation, because it was a situation that had been building for the last year, and nobody wanted. CM Punk did say multiple times that he wanted to sit down with the Elite. I don't know if that's a situation where the Elite didn't want to talk about it, or whatever. It's all a very messy situation where there's no clear indication of how things could have gotten better. Obviously, if they sat down and talked, I think things could have gone better. I think we would have had a much smoother situation. But you know, with somebody like CM Punk who feels that he has his chip on his shoulder and he feels threatened over every little thing. I mean that no, even if you sat down and talked to him and smooth things over, what's going to keep him from going off again?
Yeah.
That's a issue that CM Punk kind of needs to deal with because that's not healthy. Not pro wrestling, not in real life, not for anything. I mean, yeah, I mean, he had every right to be upset at Jack Perry about what Jack Perry said during that match, but his response was completely out of line,
Mm-hmm.
and that did put people in danger, and that did scare the hell out of Tony Khan clearly, and that's not a healthy way to react to, in the grand scheme of things, relatively minor skirmishes or sayings or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I will respond to that in 2 seconds. I just need to go close the door. But
I need water.
I have a
I just
response.
cut the longest promo I've ever cut in my career. Talking. I'm getting better at talking. Okay, I'm better. My throat was dry.
Oh. Okay. So, yeah, basically, like, if you look at this from a well-reasoned, just kind of well-rounded perspective, you will see that everyone here is right and everyone here is wrong.
Yes.
You know, like the way that Jack decided to air his grievances, there was a much better way he could have done this. But
Yes.
on the flip side of that, he was just looking at the way that CM Punk has aired half of his fucking grievances and went, well, I mean, if he can do it, why can't I? You know, that era of
There
culture
was
has
a
been
day,
set.
if you remember recently, where CM Punk just went off on everybody on Instagram, then wrote a post saying everybody needs to just go touch grass, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
look in the mirror.
Yeah,
What did you just
exactly.
spend all day doing?
So I can fully understand on the flip side of that, while CM Punk decided, all right, well, you know, you have now made this very public that you got an issue. So I can understand Punk going up and saying, hey, what's your fucking issue? But obviously doing that and in the manner that I'm sure he did, which, you know, Punk is not exactly a subtle man, I'm not surprised that it would have flared up very, very quickly into the to the incident that it became. And it does, a lot of it does come down to the fact that Punk does seem to be someone who can give it, but he can't take it.
No.
Um, which is a bad place to be in when you're someone who gives it as much as he does. Um, I don't know if it's just a fragile ego thing, or there's like,
I do want to point out something that, now this all did start, and I am going to give credit to Punk in a way. This all started with Hangman Page cutting a promo calling him a cancer,
yeah,
which
yeah,
I can understand him being upset about that.
uh-huh.
But ever
But here's
since
the thing.
then,
Here's the thing. That was like 2 fucking years ago.
true,
Like
true,
at that point, and also very crucially, in that time, again, CM Punk sat there at a press conference next to the boss and basically went scorched earth on every single fucking person. And so while there is, you know, like I can fully understand Punk's frustration with the beginning, with the, you know, the catalyst that was the Hangman promo, absolutely. At some point, you have to press A and let go. You have to
yes.
let
The thing
that,
is,
like,
he had that match with Hangman, and then he was gone for like 2 months due to leg injury. And he waited, he bided his time, and then came back and cut that promo where he called out
mhm.
Hangman Page when they were not feuding anymore.
Yep, yep,
You
yep,
can't let things go, and that's not good in
exactly.
any sense.
So it's one of those things where this was always going to happen again, and everyone could see that this was going to happen again. And you can talk about like whether to give Tony Khan credit or not for the fact that he tried to bring him back and find ways to accommodate by having Punk and the Elite on separate shows, but long term, the simple fact is you don't have just Dynamite and Collision. You do have your big shows. You do have like the events where everyone is in the same room or same building together. Now, with all that said, it wasn't even the Elite that was involved in Punk's firing. Um, but the simple fact is that the body count of people that Punk has a grievance against, or
It piled
that
up.
have grievances against him, that thing is only going to go up. That number is never going to come down.
Look at those collision cards the last weeks of his run. They were like, a lot of people were having squash matches because, I mean, all this stuff was CM Punk didn't like this guy, so he's not booked.
Yeah.
CM Punk didn't like this guy, so he's not booked. And as a result, we got matches like a bunch of squash matches. It's on a 2-hour show that felt like it was severely lacking star power. And then this past week, we had a bunch of people on and actually felt like a hot go home show for All Out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of obvious why Collision was lacking in the weeks leading to All In.
Yeah. And again, look, this isn't all on Punk. Like, hey, there is the fact that Jack handled the things the way he did. But again, at the same time, man, you gotta take a long, and this is the thing. And look, let's clear something here. I am not a Punk hater. I have been a fan of Punk since 2004, 2005. I was there, 2011 for that run, and kind of, I'd been watching WWE up until that point, but there was certainly a kind of a reignition of a passion.
I liked a lot of his stuff in AEW. I thought it was really
AEW
cool
run
when
has
he
been
came
tremendous.
out. I thought it was really cool when he came out to his old Ring of Honor theme for that match with MJF, and he had a lot of great feuds with MJF and
Eddie
a bunch of other
Kingston.
people. I like the Samoa Joe stuff.
Yeah,
Eddie Kingston.
Look. Here's the thing: if his last match was that Wembley match, that's not like a match of the year, but it's a very, very solid match.
It was a pretty good match.
But yeah, I guess that's is the question for you is like, is this it? Is this Punk's kind of last hurrah? Because he's not exactly a favorite with the Office over in WWE, and that goes both ways.
It's gonna be a question if time heals all wounds, because he left on very bad terms with WWE, and I don't know. It's going to be up to Triple H and Nick Khan if they want to bring him in, if they think that it'll be good for their business. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the risk, because again, you have someone who can't take criticism that well. Not granted, WWE is a much more controlled place, I guess you can argue, where things like this does not happen often. And when they do, it's very quiet. And I don't know if that would be a plus for everyone involved, but I think it might be a better situation for Punk to be in if I'll just say it. I think WWE tolerates less BS than AEW does, with all the stuff going on over there, and maybe has a better way of handling it.
Unless you own the company, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's one of those things where currently Punk needs them more than WWE needs him.
I think that is the situation right now.
Yeah,
it's going to boil down to if Punk wants to continue wrestling.
Yeah,
if he wants to continue wrestling, I mean, that's pretty much the only place that will pay. I don't see Impact signing him. I don't see New Japan signing him, unless they're going for like a number of dates, maybe per year. I mean, know.
Look, EC3 said the door's open for his NWA debut if he wanted it.
Sure. Yeah, cool.
Maybe he can make his return to Major League Wrestling after
Yeah,
20 odd
I mean, how
years.
much is Billy gonna pay him? Yeah, because clearly, based on the talent level there, he's throwing out the money.
Yeah. It's certainly, if this is, well, I mean, I say it's a shame if it ended this way, but also it couldn't have ended any other way. Like it's not
No,
exactly like he was going to ride off into the sunset.
we all knew
Uh,
this. It was probably going to end this way once he got brought back. Because
yeah.
to me, I'm just saying this is a ticking time bomb. It was going to be a matter of time before something else gets him really mad, and something got him really mad, and this happened. So it was inevitable. I went into this last run thinking, enjoy it while you can, because something is going to happen that he doesn't like. And he's going to go off, and he's either going to quit or he's going to do something, or something's going to happen that will result in him being fired. And that's exactly what happened.
So with all that said, I guess we could actually just talk about All in London now,
Yeah,
and we can talk about that match as well.
the biggest show in AEW's career, in AEW's lifespan.
Yeah,
Pro
slightly
wrestling
overshadowed.
history. Pro wrestling history, really, when you think about it, because that number, I think it's 80 something, 81,000.
81,035, a shoot
That's
number.
that's that's the record, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
surpasses WrestleMania in Texas.
Which I was also there for as well. This was a much better show than that, let me tell you.
Oh my God, yes. I remember that 32 show where it's like Roman Reigns and Triple H wrestled for 50 hours
What was longer? What was worse?
after 8 hours of wrestling.
That or the tribal combat match, which was worse?
That one, because that was during an 8 hour show where a
Mhm.
lot of stuff was just crap. Nothing made any sense. And then they did that match where they just sat there and did rest holds for 30 minutes. And it's just like, how can you book a match like this at this time? It's just, that was one of my least favorite WrestleManias ever. Just not good in any conceivable way.
Yeah. Yep. All Elite Wrestling presents All in London, from Wembley Stadium. The first time Wembley Stadium has hosted a show since SummerSlam 1992. And I was there live. I was there for the weekend. I didn't go to any other wrestling. I didn't go to the Eve show. I didn't go to the Rev Pro show, but I have watched the Rev Pro show
I did
back.
hear Tomohiro Ishii had like the match of the weekend with
I I
somebody.
I will tell you about that in due course. Don't you worry about that. Now for me, so I was on the floor, and I was quite a ways back. I was there like early pre-sale in terms of the tickets that I got. And when I think about it, I probably could have just held off and then just got like the actual kind of ticket sales, because they were, they never properly sold out the show. There were tickets still available. Um, and so as a result, where I got tickets on the floor towards the back, which doesn't have any kind of like tiered seating to it, meant that I couldn't actually see a lot of the ring. I could see bits of the ring, but for the most part, I was having to look up at the giant screen that was on the marquee that was kind of overlooking the ring.
That felt like me at WrestleMania because I was up in the press box. So I mean, I could see the ring, but it looked like two little dots doing stuff.
Yeah,
So I just ended up watching on the big monitor. There's also monitors inside the press box, but
yeah.
they were kind of not working from
It's
during this show. So yeah.
it's one of those things where, with like, if you go to a basketball arena or an ice hockey arena or whatever, for the most part, anywhere you sit, you're going to be able to see the ring, and have at least a fairly decent view of the ring to watch the wrestling. Stadium shows is a complete crapshoot, based on a number of things. For example, for a start, is it an open air stadium or is it a closed stadium? Because if it's a closed stadium, you haven't got to worry about a marquee. If you've got an open air stadium, you got to worry about the fact that if you're in one of the corners, you might be staring at a fucking pillar for most of the show, which is a big issue, because then if you're in the corner, you might not even have a direct view of the actual screens to be able to watch the wrestling even from there. And I remember, I think it was Mania 29. I had partially part of the ring blocked off from one of those pillars, holding the marquee together.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and I'd heard some tweets from some people that they'd had this issue as well.
Was that
So,
Rock and Cena?
that was Rockin' Cena 2, yes. Um, so, like, for example, when I went to the Cardiff show last year, Principality Stadium is a closed stadium, or at least it was closed that day anyway. So, none of the marquee, none of that nonsense. And I was slightly above on the kind of like the first balcony, so I had a clear view of the ring. Now I was quite far away, but I had a clear view of the ring. I could see, and that was fine. With this, I could barely see the entrance ramp because they didn't have any kind of elevation to the entrance ramp, so people were on the floor, like walking to the ring, which means I couldn't see anything there. And I just, the ring is quite high up, so if you're on the floor, just, and the thing with it is all it takes is like one person, even a couple of rows ahead of you, being quite tall, and you're fucked. But the two people literally in front of me were taller than me when they sat down. So I was like, well, that's that then. So I had to watch the bulk of the show through the monitor, through the screen. But with that said, there is something about the aura and the vibe of being in a stadium, certainly an open air stadium, as it gets darker, that you just can't replicate anywhere else. And I tell you what, when the first like bars of Seek and Destroy started, and you've got Sting and Darby Allin coming out to Metallica, that's it. That's the magic. That's where you're just like, all right, this is all worth it then. And while Wembley Stadium is a pretty decent stadium in terms of its setup, it's obviously it's made for hosting large events. There are a couple of issues. So, like most modern stadiums now, like you can't just go and buy a drink. They have to pour it into a glass or into a plastic cup. So you have to wait forever to them to do that. And the queues were fucking insane at points.
I've
The
been to a few stadiums that are like that.
Yeah, the prices are just like fucking.
Yeah,
uh,
just probably just like here.
I'm so happy that
So,
I don't. I'm not like
it's like $6-7 for a bottle of water.
it's, Jesus, I'm not a big drinker like alcohol, so I can kind of get away with it. But like my friend who I went with, two drinks were like 20 quid together, and it's just like I'd rather just drink water and then fucking go for a pint afterwards.
Yeah,
But that's kind of a sin
it's
of
probably the best
stadiums as a
option.
whole. Yeah. But otherwise, like it's a good setup. It's easy to get to. It's well connected to London, and the London Underground. So yeah, that's all that. In terms of the show, though, starting off, CM Punk defeated Samoa Joe, in what could be the last match of CM Punk's career. I will say this. I didn't really have any time for the Real World's Championship, and if this is where that thing gets ended, I'm not going to cry about it.
To me, I feel like it's a thing because, I don't know if I should say this, but I think it was a thing to placate Punk because he never lost the title. So it's like there didn't even seem to be like a real direction between him and MGF anytime soon. So it's
No.
kind of like, are they just placating him because he didn't lose a title or something? Maybe.
I mean, it could be partially that. It could also just be a way to have some sort of world championship on Collision because
it
MJF
was
was
like an
apparently
idea to
involved.
have a world championship on Collision because
Yeah.
I guess MGF wasn't going to appear on there that much.
But this was a very, very fun match. Punk was doing throwback spots, Terry Funk tribute spots. Samoa Joe had an energy. Here's the thing, look, both of these men are in their mid 40s at this point, and they can't turn the magic on every time like they once could. That's fine. I get that. But on this night, you could see there was a bit of fatigue towards the end, certainly with Joe. Like, asking Joe to go over 10 minutes these days is going to be a challenge.
And then he's gonna be putting a big spot soon.
Yeah, I mean,
Grand Slam with MJF.
I think 7 to 10 minutes is the sweet spot with Joe these days. You can still during that time get the aura and vibe that is Joe, and I think they had it for the most part here. And yeah, not match of the night or anything, but I thought this was good fun.
Yeah, this was a pretty good match. It's not like an excellent match, but I thought this was way better than their own heart final. Not final, but semifinal from a few months ago. This was a lot better, and this was more fun, and it was a good way to open the show. Unfortunately, everyone's going to talk about after that match, but I mean, the match itself was pretty good.
Six-man tag team action. Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Konosuke Takeshita defeated Adam Page, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi in a very fun six-man tag. Bullet Club Gold. They have one of the better entrances in wrestling at the moment, and
yeah, it's a really cool entrance.
the way the entrance ramp was set up for the Wembley show, just a very very cool entrance, a cool vibe to it. And this was not like any kind of world beating six-man tag, but you've got a bunch of stories there that are kind of all interconnected. And Jay White is kind of a bit of a ring general with these multi-man tags at the moment. Like, he's been in a bunch of them, and he kind of always seems to be the glue holding things together, and it was very much the case here. But the crowd were into this. Even God bless him, Kota Ibushi, but he has seen better days.
I think it's starting to become obvious that shoulder injury really was a career changer.
Yeah,
it's really clear that he's not what he used to be.
And look, here's the thing: you can have injuries that do change your career, but you find a way to work around it, and he hasn't really figured out.
Yeah, I don't think he's worked enough to where he needs to figure out how to like work around what he now has limitations. That's very clear.
Yeah,
and he kind of needs to like learn how to work in a way that masks what he can't do anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know though if he wants to like work a regular schedule, because he's only wrestled sparingly since that injury, and he's only
I think it's just 2 matches.
maybe
I
four.
think
It's like 4 matches maybe.
I mean,
in this year.
I know this and the Blood and Guts match, the 2 matches I know off the top of my head.
Yes, and then there's like 2 during WrestleMania weekend.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah.
So
yeah, look, that is not a man
it's
who's
only a
doing
few
a full-time.
times.
That's not a man who's doing a full-time schedule anymore. Which I think is for the best, to be quite honest.
Yeah. To me, it seems like a surprise that he even returned, because he had been gone for it's been like 2 years now. So that shoulder injury took a long time to recover from.
Well, it's a combination of that and the fact that he also went
And the New
scorched earth
Japan
with
drama. Yeah.
so there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Some stuff has kept him off for a while.
Yeah. FTR retained their titles against the Young Bucks in a very good match, one that took a little while to get cooking. I've seen these two have better matches in them. I've seen FTR specifically this year have much, much better matches. Looking specifically at the matches that they had with Juice and Jay White. But look, you've got 2 teams of the talent that these two have. It's impossible for them to have a bad match, I would say. One thing I think it was on Voices Wrestling, they were kind of talking about the fact that when you look at the Bucks, when you look at them during this show, and when you look at them during All Out, and the one big difference being the fact that at one point CM Punk was part of the company, and then at another point CM Punk is not part of the company, there is very much a different tone and a different kind of vibe to them in terms of like their kind of aura and how they look and how much effort that they want to put in. And I do think that with that Black Cloud gone, I think that there's a version of the Bucks that we haven't really probably had over the last 2 years or so that I think we're probably going to see the return of now they haven't got to deal with that chaos anymore.
Yeah. I thought this match was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good match. I don't think it was as good as their previous TV match. I mean, the thing with the Bucks and FTR is that this is their trilogy, and there was one match where I didn't think it was. I mean, it was good but not great, and then another match where I thought it was really good, and this time they had a good match. I don't know if I would say a great match. I was just kind of waiting for it to get to that next level where it's like really, really, really good, and they did not hit that here. So as a result, it was just a good match. And from what it looks like on TV, it looks like they're continuing the feud. So I guess we'll get another match. We'll see how they do. I don't know if it will meet the expectations of a match that those two are expected to do, but we'll see.
Stadium Stampede, which was just anarchy in the arena. Let's just put that out
Yeah,
there.
pretty much.
Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, and Pentagon Jr. defeated Claudia Castagnoli, John Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and the returning Mike Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah,
In what
Santana has
was
a first name now.
He does have a first name now. Yes, that is the
Ortiz does
progression of his
not.
character.
I don't know why.
No. This match was, for me, the thing that it highlighted more than anything else is the change in production over the past year or two, where you go back to the first Anarchy in the arena. And one of the things I was thinking about when that match started at the time 2 years ago was that how the hell are you going to film 10 people going over an arena just causing all types of chaos and carnage and mayhem? And one of the things I remember about that match, and one of the reasons why it was like probably my favorite match of the year, if I recall, is that actually was it 2 years ago? No, I think it was just last year. But the thing about that match is the fact that it was filmed to perfection. There were no missed spots. There was no, like panning to the audience during a pivotal moment. Every single shot of that match was done to perfection in a way that, like, for me, was a fucking, that was like the 11th person in the match for it to be filmed as well as it was. And the problem with this Stadium Stampede match and AEW in general at the moment is there are so many times where a spot is about to happen and the camera goes somewhere else, goes to the audience,
Yeah.
and it's like I get it, with a match like this, it's very difficult again to kind of keep all 10 people filmed and done in a way which feels smooth and seamless. But it happens with like just regular singles matches and tag team matches. So I was like, going into that, I was like, I know that this is going to be fucked up in terms of like what gets seen, what gets missed, and that's what happened. Um, and I had to watch it this way because I couldn't fucking see it. I could see a very tiny version of Eddie Kingston and Claudia Castagnoli up on a balcony, several hundred feet away from me. But I think the filming of this match really highlighted the problems I have with the production of AEW at the moment.
Yeah, I do. I can see why people would complain. There's shots all over the place. It's kind of a mess sometimes for AEW to get the right shot, and I think that was evident in this match. I thought it was just really fun, though. I thought this was a fun match. Just stuff happening, going on. But I could see why people would not really like the production of the match, because when you go this route, you have a fun match, but AEW's production is kind of all over the place. Not so much as WWE sometimes, where they cut like every single second, which can cause nausea and stuff like that. But sometimes AEW's production, they're just not in the right place at times, and that feels, it could feel off. And there were parts of this match where I felt it was off in terms of that, but I thought overall it was a fun match. I kind of wish it kind of just did more in terms of like brawling inside and outside of the arena a little bit more, because it was mostly confined to the ringside area where they just did stuff in the crowd and um, on the stage and in the ring. Kind of wish it kind of went out and did more stuff around the arena. But overall, I thought it was a fun match. I thought it was really good.
And one of the other things of this match as well, the costume change they did for Penta to his Penta Obscura character, which I think had maybe like a 2-week run on AEW. Um, the crowd just and I, someone who is very, very hardcore my wrestling, even I didn't quite understand what the fuck was happening. And for a start, I didn't realize that he disappeared for about 5 or 6 minutes. To when his music started playing, he's Penta Obscura music, and then he came out in like a red outfit. I just thought he'd gone for a costume change. I didn't understand that there was meant to be like a more kind of significance to it. Which all that then happened is he just did a flipping power bomb off the ladder, which he broke, which was going to happen if you understand the basics of physics and a one-sided ladder like that. And that whole thing was just a complete disaster. And it's just one of those things where I don't know how these matches are put together, but someone has to be there. Like this whole segment here is not going to work for all of these reasons, and as well, if you're gonna do like a big thing where, he's gonna change into his like darker persona,
Yeah.
I would think that he has to be there at the end of the match to some significant degree as well. But it just the whole thing did not work for me. Like the effort, the spectacle, the fucking bamboo skewers into the head, all of that,
Yeah.
thumbs up. Always a good time. But
Sure.
this match had a lot of misses for me in a way that previous Stampede and Anarchy, and more specifically the Anarchy and Arena matches, haven't had those issues.
Yeah, I could see why some didn't like the match in terms of the production, and Penta Oscuro thing is also kind of weird. I don't know why people would think we would remember a gimmick from like what was a year ago, and
I
it
mean, you
wasn't
could
really
argue,
like a gimmick everybody liked or remembered.
yeah, I mean, you could argue that it's like an offshoot of the Pentagon Dark character
Yeah,
from
from
Lucha
Lucha
Underground.
Underground.
But again, it's not something that they've spent any significant amount
Yeah,
of time like
it's like, oh,
diving
it's
into.
it's this is Penta's alter ego or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it wasn't like anything I would remember in this world where there's new stuff like every week, every day.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's kind of gets lost on me a little
Yeah.
bit.
Uh, Soraya defeated women's champion Hikaru Shida, Dr. Britt Baker, and Tony Storm in a fatal four-way to become the new AEW Women's World Champion. Uh, this was fine, like it didn't get much time, but for what was there, the work was solid enough, and they kind of played into the storyline that's going on with the Outcasts at the moment. Um, this character shift of Tony Storm's, I'm all here for. Thumbs up. I think that she is really leaning into this, I guess, like kind of 50s golden age of Hollywood blonde bombshell,
Yeah,
but also completely fucking deluded with with the character. I'm all here for it. Soraya winning certainly is a choice. Um, I will just leave it at, I guess we'll see what happens.
I have reached a point where I cannot get into any of this Outcast stuff. It seems like it's just treading water, and it's felt like that ever since Jamie Hayter got injured.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for like the next bay face that I can credibly buy, where that they will beat one of them to win the title. And at this point, it's like we're just doing like the same three people challenging the Outcasts every single week, and it's just kind of like treading water. And I see people kind of like the Tony Storm stuff. I like the gimmick change a little bit, but like I just think of all those times in WWE where it's like they had the crazy person gimmick because they didn't know how to tell any other story other than, oh, the women are crazy. And I just kind of feel like that with the Tony Storm character. It's like, do we need to have like a crazy person uh, in a crazy person gimmick in this division? It's like, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling any of what they're doing right now with the women's division. It's just WWE's doing a lot of cool stuff with their division. I'm not saying like everything's working out well, but it's like there's stuff that's going on and it feels like it's hot. None of that is being reflected in AEW's women's division right now. It just feels like there's just stuff going on. It doesn't feel like anyone's really getting over. It feels like just stuff that's happening. And some of it's okay, some of it's not, but it's just nothing feels hot. Even Chris Statlander, since her return, she's just kind of been like a person wrestling and winning matches. It's none of it feels like it's hot.
I mean, in fairness, she hasn't even done that much since winning the TBS championship.
She's been defending it regularly.
I feel like I've only seen her a handful of times,
A
but
lot
maybe
of times on Collision, sometimes on Dynamite. She defended it this past week on Dynamite.
I did see the Emi Sakura match was pretty good. Yeah,
That was good. I did like that because Emi Sakura isn't on TV a lot, and
yeah,
she's really good.
yeah. I think the thing you could say in defense is that um there was probably a different match they had in mind, probably involving Jamie Hayter.
Yeah,
Um, that obviously couldn't happen
but
because of
she's
a
been
shoulder
gone for
injury.
months.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you heard anything about like what her status is?
Last time I heard, she wasn't. It was likely she wouldn't be ready until next year.
Right.
It's
Okay. So
whatever she has, it's
it's
serious, I
bad
guess.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I fucking wish. I mean, and other people have made this
Yeah.
argument. This is not an original argument, but it's like, just give us fucking something. Like she'll be out for 6 months.
Yeah.
She'll be out for 9 months. Just
She could have
uh,
appeared.
yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you could make the argument she could have been here, like with Britt Baker. But on the flip side of that, like if she's good to go for next year, I do think that, and this is just my armchair booking. Um, I think that you build next year's show around her in the main event, winning the championship, whoever that may be against. If it was me, if Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné, is coming in,
We did forget that she was there,
that would be the match that
and
I.
they made sure to put her on TV.
Yes, we will. We will.
That would be
That's
something fresh breath of air in that division. But the question is, how long would she be committed to being on AEW? And also, when is she coming back? Because it's been a few months, but
yeah.
seems like she's still a ways away from returning, or else she would have done something more at All In.
Yes. Yes. No, you are right. A coffin tag team match with Darby Allin and Sting defeating Christian Cage and Swerve Strickland. As mentioned, Sting came out to his WCW 2000 music, which was Seek and Destroy
Seek
by
and Destroy.
Metallica, which is a great fucking song.
It
It's a
is.
great piece of entrance music, and I was losing my goddamn mind at this moment. Yeah, this was just a ton of fun. Sting matches that he's had in 2002, 2022 and 2023. Just these kind of chaotic plunder style matches, which usually involve Sting jumping off of something onto someone. And just a really well smart put together match. You've got someone like a general like Christian Cage, you can kind of tie things together, but his kind of character work and his gimmick is firing on all cylinders at the moment. And Swerve Strickland, who I'm just saying, like he should be, main event level in terms of where he is next year. He's got everything, and if they don't capitalize on him, that will be of the many things that this company can do to annoy me. I think that would annoy me more than anything else because this man is just fucking. He's money as far as I'm concerned. What do you think of the match?
Um, I thought it was a really good match. Look at my notes. Okay, it's good that I've written all the reviews for these 10,000
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
that's happened the last month.
Which you can find over at Figureful online.
Exactly, WrestlingObserver.com. A lot of this was Alan just taking sick bumps on the coffin. Like every time he would land on that coffin, and I'm like, okay, that looked like it hurt. And it probably did. And Sting came out with the Metallica music from the end of his WCW run. That was really cool. It was a very good match, and then the Babyfaces won, and Swerve got stuck in the coffin, and everyone was happy. It was a nice end to a long feud. So I thought everything in this match was really good. I liked it.
Yeah. Will Ospreay defeated Chris Jericho in a Tony Khan, hey, please, like, come work for my company in 6 months' time advertisement.
Sure seems like it.
Yeah, look, you really could not do any more to put over someone who doesn't work for your company, but whose contract
Yeah.
is coming up in 6 months' time. Between the very lavish and expensive entrance with a lot of fireworks, to the fact that, you know, he was put over clean against Chris Jericho. Yeah, you really couldn't do more for this guy. And I thought that Chris Jericho is 52, 53. There are certain spots that you kind of winced at the idea of him doing. Some of them were in this match, but you can't get a straight up, you know, a realization of what a Will Ospreay match is against Chris Jericho. Just physically, it's not possible. But Jericho held his own in this, and I thought
He
that this
did.
was actually a really fun match. I do think, not to kind of go into Meltzer ratings, I think this is a little bit overrated, but I think it's a very, very, very good match between two very solid professional
I
wrestlers.
would put this at around like 4.25. I mean, this was a really good match. This felt like a Will Ospreay style match, and then a lot of it was fast paced. And the question was going to be if Chris Jericho, who is around 52, can he work this style of match at this point in his career? And I thought he did a really good job of holding his own. And it ended up in a really good, quick back and forth match. There was a spot early where like Jericho I think got hurt after he took like a Sky Twister press. I think Osprey was like maybe on the outside and Jericho was on the outside and he landed and it didn't look that good. But beyond that, I mean, this was peak Osprey and Jericho held his own. So this ended up being a very good match.
Yeah, I think that if Ospreay does sign with them, um, I'm very curious about, like, come Wembley next year, where he's positioned on the card. Because here's one of the big things is the fact that he was very, like, so many people in that stadium have probably seen Will Ospreay at some point, in, you know, a venue that was a fucking fraction of the size of Wembley Stadium. Yeah, I remember seeing him 10 years ago at the Electric Ballroom in front of about 700 people. Um, you know, like, Osprey is about as big as a star as you can get in the UK at this moment that
Yeah.
isn't, you know, attached to WWE. Um, and it's just one of those things, like, yeah, where is he next year on this card if he is signed with a company? Because it's interesting with him. I've never seen him as like the guy that can be the ace of a company. You know, like, he was pushed to a degree in New Japan to the top, but when he was holding in part of the issue is the fact that he was holding the new version of the IWGP Heavyweight title that I still can't get on board with. But it never felt like he should be the one at the top of the company. He's kind of like that sort of Naito, that kind of 1B to a card as 1A. Um, and part of it is that his promo work is limited, shall we say.
He is very passionate when he cuts promos, but I don't know if he's good at it. I think that's the pro. He's very passionate when he cuts promos,
Yeah.
and he talks a lot. I don't know if it's good though. That's his problem.
It's it's just it's very, like, leaning into a very specific type of um you know, kind of East London style kind of gangster character. Well, not so much gangster, but just a lot of that kind of attitude that people from East London have. But it's definitely it's more energy than it is the actual contents. It's kind of like a
Yes,
Bray Wyatt promo, you know, like, a lot of things are being said and you kind of get the vibe of it, but
he's a little.
the actual words
Yeah,
don't really matter.
he also didn't talk about Bray, which just reminded me.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus, I didn't. Yeah, fuck.
There's a ton that did happen in August.
Yeah. God. Yeah. I guess we can just kind of throw that in there
We,
now.
we do we want to like go the rest of the show that then talk after
Yeah,
all?
all right. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that because otherwise
We
it'd
do that.
be pretty jarring.
Yeah.
Trios title, Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed defeated the House of Black. Not much to say about this other than it was very interesting. I was watching Malachi Black specifically in this match, and there were a lot of times where he either looked just completely disinterested with this whole thing, or he looked like he was in utter excruciating agony. And I know his back is a bit wrecked at the moment, but it's like I can't tell how much of this is a work and how much of this is just he is just in complete agony. Um, but he seems checked out, like really properly checked out.
Like Black?
Yeah, for me,
Okay.
like I got that vibe in this match.
I mean, yeah, it was a simple match. I didn't think much of it. It was just a nice way to finish that story between the Claimed and Billy Gunn and all of that. Yeah, I could see Alistair. I mean, like they're focused a lot on Collision because um, Brody King is yeah, Brody King is CM Punk's guy, and so they got featured a lot on a Collision. But I hadn't noticed anything with Alistair Black, but his back has been jacked up for a long time. And if you remember, I mean, he at one point he tried to get out of his contract, and they said no. So he's just kind of here doing stuff, and I don't know. I didn't notice it in this match, but I could see maybe why, because maybe his back is all messed up. But I thought this was fine. It wasn't like good, but it was just a nice buffer in between the bigger matches. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I completely forgot about this match. Like I as every
Yeah.
match was coming up, next match, I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. And then this one appeared and I was like, I could have just gone to the main event. I'd have been fine with that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think this did air during the point in the card where it's like, okay, I'm kind of ready to see the main event and do other stuff today.
Yeah. And then in the main event, MJF defeated his brochacho Adam Cole in 27 minutes 30 seconds to retain the AEW
People
World
had a
Championship.
people had very conflicting opinions about this main event
Brian, tell me, what
because
did you think of this main event?
I liked it in terms of they told a pretty good story. Um, see my notes. Yeah, I thought it was very compelling because I can understand both sides. I can understand like if people wanted like a really hot back and forth match. This was much more of a storytelling match about centering around MGF and Adam Cole's friendship. And you can see that during points in the match where they talk to each other and all that. But I mean, it did heat up, and I did get myself invested into the storyline. The point in the match where they got pinned with a double clothesline, I, I get why they did it because they want MGF to like kind of like redeem himself after he didn't give Adam Cole a 5 minute stretch during their first match a few months ago. So I liked it in that way. I could see why people would be like, why did we have a false finish in this match like that? Um, I think that I I see why they did this match because I think down the line when the turn happens, they are going to have a much more back and forth, like real kind of main event kind of match. And have you could argue that they could have done that match here and maybe have done the turn before. But I think what they're thinking is longer term in that they want to go with this as long as they can. And then when the time is up, which I don't think it's there yet, but I know it's going to be soon. It's there's been a lot of teases, and of course they teased here about the turn at the end of the show, and they didn't, and then they hugged and they had a nice ending to the show. Um, you can argue that maybe it should have happened here, but I think it's more like they're doing this for itself. it's a match taking place here because it's going to build towards another match. I don't know if it will be at Full Gear. I don't know if it will be, maybe even at Revolution next year. It's a very long term story that they are telling. It's one of the only stories that's really going to be a long term story going forward. So I can see why they had this match here, because it's going to lead eventually to another match where they will not be friends. And until then, we had this match, which was a very much telling the story, as opposed to like a back and forth main event level match.
I mean, I will say this: being there live in the crowd, um, the match had its twists, it had its turns, it had, it had elements of the kind of like modern WWE main event style of booking patterns. But the one big difference between this and, like a modern Roman Reigns match is it still retained that sort of like modern North American indie style of pace to it.
Yeah.
But fused with some of the sensibilities of modern WWE storytelling.
It didn't drag down like a Roman Reigns match. Roman Reigns
God no,
matches
no,
like to drag down. Roman Reigns likes to do his monologues.
yeah.
We saw some of that here, but this is much more storytelling match as opposed to Roman Reigns dragging it down. There was hot action in
Yeah.
between all the story they're trying to tell.
So, I don't think you could be certainly, in the audience and be bored by this match and the performances, because there was too much going on. It was there weren't many kind of lull moments, many quiet moments. If you want to be annoyed by the actual booking and the structure of the match in terms of both of them putting on their t-shirts at the start, and then MJF doing the thumb poke, and then Adam Cole hitting a fucking brainbuster on the stairs, and then feeling really bad about it. And then MJF not wanting to do the tombstone and all of this kind of stuff. If you want to look at that and just be very, very irritated by that, I completely get that. And you know what? If I was watching it at home, I probably would have felt the same as well. But being there live, the crowd was eating it all up. And even I, with some of the false finishes, I was there. I was chomping at the bit, thinking that, certainly when Roderick Strong came out, I was like, because in my mind, I was thinking, all right, this is where Adam Cole is going to do the turn, and we're going to go from
That's
there.
what I was thinking.
And that's where we build this story over the next couple of months. Obviously, it wasn't the case. But look, I bit on the false finishes, and so I was there till the end with the match. So from that perspective, this was a success. I would say that I don't know what this story can do with, like, the logical thing was that Adam Cole turned and won the title at Wembley because he was the one that was like the master fiddler all along, and that would have made sense. That would have worked for the story, and that's how you kind of keep it going. But now it's like, well, when one of them does turn, what actually is the catalyst? Because the whole point of it, if you were going to do the turn originally, is Cole did it to take advantage to win the title. Where now it's like, no, you've solidified this relationship, which to some degree, like, I don't have an issue with the fact that the main event ended and they went, oh, you look, we're still bros, we still, we love each other and celebrate with the confetti. I don't actually have an issue with that ending, but it does cause an issue where if when that turn happens at some point later on, how they make that work from a logical sense. Um, so we'll see, because this thing's going to play out over the next couple of months, so they're not going to rush it. I'll say that much.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. This is a long-term storyline, and out. But the thing is, we don't know when the turn is going to happen because it seems like they've been teasing it for such a long time. There's Grand Slam where I think it's going to be Samoa Joe and MGF, so I don't think I'll be there. You can always do something at perhaps Full Gear. I don't know. It seems much more open since they didn't do the turn it all in or all out. It's much more open now as to when they can do it, and we'll see. It seems like they're good. They're doing this for a long term until they feel it's time to finally pull the trigger, and when that is, it's not that known. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Yep. So that's all in London. We'll talk about All Out next month. That took place this weekend. But yeah, I guess we can jump over to both Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk, who both passed away in August. Terry Funk, had been in poor health for a while. He was, I think, like 84, was it?
I think it was 79.
Was it 79? I think I was
Yeah.
I might have been mixing him up with someone else who passed away recently.
Yeah.
But yeah,
General Adnan.
yes, that's the one. Yes, I'm mixing up with General Adnan. But like a full life, a very full life lived, Terry
Oh, yeah.
Funk. Someone whose body of work I'm not as familiar with. My first introduction, like many people, was the late 90s. He's kind of short run in WWF. I remember seeing him in the Hell in a Cell match, being choke slammed out of his shoes by Undertaker. I remember grabbing a copy of the IWA King of the Death Match tournament from 1995. And I remember it specifically because my friend managed to grab a hold of the VHS. And we have something over, I think it's a UK thing specifically. We have what's called video nasties. And they're horror films that are like so to the extreme in terms of like the body horror or the violence or whatever, that the kind of cover of it is like, it's like kind of a black case, and then it's got like a skull on it. And like all of the films that are in this kind of line, they all have like the same kind of case, but then the logo is whatever.
Yeah, I
And
think we
so
have something like that, but it's the kind. It reminds me of like Faces of Death, those kind of movies where it's like you're supposed to like think it's maybe real or
yeah,
something.
but it's just
Kind of like
basically, it's that
that.
kind of like, that you probably shouldn't own this. It
Yeah,
feels like it's like on the black market or something.
I think it's called like Mondo Films or something like that.
Okay.
Also,
But I remember, my friend getting a hold of that tape and us watching it, and it's in Japanese, and it's like a completely different level of production, and it's just,
yeah,
it's like watching a snuff flick, and just
it's
seeing
not films. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like seeing, like the fucking barbed wire and the nails on the boards, and the match at the end with Jack and Terry Funk. And it was just unlike anything that I'd ever seen before. It was just, and because keep in mind that I didn't watch ECW growing up. I didn't have access to anything like FWA. It would take me many, many years after to get access to the kind of thing. Because up until that point, most of my consumption of wrestling had been WWF/WWE and very late WCW. So it just completely blew my mind. And then obviously over the years, I'd go back and I'd see bits of Terry Funk. I would watch, the Ric Flair I Quit match. I would watch bits of his ECW run, but I would still say largely overall, my understanding of Terry Funk is more just about the persona, the character, the sort of kind of living legend status that was Terry Funk, more so than the actual wrestler and the matches themselves. I don't know where
yeah.
you are with Funk.
I'm kind of the same way in that I didn't really start watching stuff about Terry Funk. I think the first extensive thing was like Beyond the Mat, actually,
Sure.
where they
And I think that was the
documented
case with a
his
lot of people our age. Yeah.
one of his many retirements. Where I think he had the match with Bret Hart, somewhat maybe in Canada, but I think it was with Bret Hart. It was like in 1997,
Yeah, which I didn't seen Beyond the Mat in forever, so I totally
and
forgot about that.
it's coming out on Blu-ray. I just saw the other day, so it's coming out soon. I'm gonna get that.
Nice.
So yeah, I remember first watching him in that, and then just kind of his appearances elsewhere during that time. He made a few appearances in ECW when that relaunched, and the less said about that relaunch, the better. Um, and just other appearances throughout the years, and then of course going back and watching some of his stuff. His feud with Ric Flair in the NWA in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, that was cool. Uh, Pretty cool stuff. And I've seen some of his ECW stuff where they built him up as this old school veteran that was wrestling against like Raven and Stevie Richards, and that was a very well done storyline that they told there. And then I remember some of his WCW stuff towards the end of 99 2000, towards the end of that run, where it's like he had like this match with Chris Candido, and it was like a hardcore match, and he ended up brawling to like a like a stable or something, and he got bucked by a horse, and he
Yeah.
was like, "You effing horse," and things like that. I thought that was funny. But no, I mean, most of this stuff I've seen of Terry Funk is just promos and stuff, and how memorable that stuff was. And of course, Dave just was crushed by the news of his death, and he was
Yeah.
on Wrestling Observer Radio a lot and talked about. Actually, one of the things after he died is I was clipping a clip to use on our YouTube channel, and I clipped something like Terry Funk talks about the future of wrestling, and this was back in like 2011, and it was talking about how everything was going to go online, and he was right. And he talked about how UFC was going to influence WWE in a lot of ways, and that was true too, to an extent, because there are people who went from MMA to wrestling and stuff like that. So he was very smart. He was a very smart guy. He knew a lot. You could see a lot of things that people his age in wrestling didn't. And I thought he was very smart in that way, that he saw the future of wrestling and where I was going, and a great mind for that. And just in terms of a personality, just in terms of a promo, there's nobody like Terry Funk. And
That's
it's
for
very
sure.
rare. It's very rare for people to like stand out to the level that Terry Funk did, especially today, where a lot of stuff is a lot of carbon copy and things like that. And it's very rare to stand out. And Terry Funk stood out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, just really great, unique personality.
Speaking also of someone that stood out, Bray Wyatt also passed away this week at the age of 36, which is just, that's only 1 year older than me. That
I'm going to be
is,
36 in a few weeks.
yeah.
That it really hits
Um,
home.
yeah, he had been off TV since I think it was like February, was the last time he was around.
Because he was
Uh,
supposed to be in a match with Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, and they had just started building towards that, and then
yeah,
he just got written off.
yeah.
So
He had contracted COVID, and that had caused some heart issues, which would kind of continue to plague him over like the rest of 2023. And yeah, he had a heart attack,
yeah,
and just, I mean, look, I'll say this much, there are people that Bray Wyatt was a very polarizing figure, for a number of reasons. He certainly had a vision that he presented of his version of pro wrestling, and there were a lot of misses for me in that, and
yeah.
a lot of his Fiend character I did not care for. A lot of his work during the pandemic was some of the worst fucking stuff that I just had no time for. But I'll say this: I was watching FCW when he came up with the Bray Wyatt character. I remember the debut of that character. I remember seeing Eli Cottonwood in the background being his fucking, second to him.
I
And
remember
I
that too.
and I remember the tone and the conviction, and I was like, this is Husky Harris. What the
Yeah,
fuck is this? And I knew right there. I was like, all right, if nothing else, this is a character. This is something that they can work with. And um they would show up in NXT. There was the Wyatt family. Uh, the combination of him, Rowan, and Harper was a perfect trio. And then they would come up, and again, it was one of those things. It's like they have this kind of gimmicky character, in the spirit of like a Kane and an Undertaker, and that's going to be a bit of a problem because those gimmicks don't work as much in kind of like the modern conventions of wrestling. and for a time at least, there was at least a twist to the character where it was kind of grounded in that the roots of reality, of that kind of like cultist Louisiana type of kind of Bayou
I
shtick
think the
that.
comparison at the time was like the guy from Cape Fear that
Yes, and
moved from
absolutely. Yeah.
20, 30 years ago.
And that was totally in there. And so, by having the kind of like cartoonish elements that you get with the Kane and Undertaker, but grounding it in reality with something that is tangible, it's like, all right, you've probably got the perfect blend here for a wrestling character. The problem is that over the years they would lean more and more into the mystical, the
Spooky.
fantastical, the spooky, and it just went so far in a direction that I was not for me, and not for a lot of
Yeah.
other people as well. But there were those that did enjoy that version of the character.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things that can be true about Wyndham Rotunda. One, that he was a very creative person, because I too remember when he first started that character towards the end of FCW and the start of NXT, and I remember thinking like, this is really compelling stuff. This is really cool, and I want to see where it goes. And every time it was time to change or alter that character, Wyndham had a lot of great ideas and a lot of clever ideas. Like even as recently as last year when they did that White Rabbit stuff, I thought that was really a good viral way to lead to his return. I thought it was very creative. I thought it was something that not a lot of people would have come up with. And I think he was very smart in the way that he thought out of the box, because that's not easy to do in pro wrestling, because a lot of things are things that were taken from other eras of pro wrestling and applied, and sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't. The other thing that can be said is that the characters that he created and the characters he cultivated, um, they are all very interesting, but they were very hard to apply to in terms of actual pro wrestling. Because even going back as far as the first iteration of the Bray Wyatt character, he often spoke in riddles, and I mean, his promos were compelling, but they were not conducive to like building towards like a really great match. And the matches that he had, first under the Bray Wyatt character, they were hit or miss. Stuff under the Fiend character was not good. The stuff then he only wrestled a few times under this latest iteration of the character, and that Lights Out match from earlier this year that wasn't good. But at the same time, you can say that it's very hard, because you can say that some of his stuff was hit or miss. It was absolutely true. And there's people on the internet that are like, well, you all hated the Fiend, so why are you sad? Shit like that. And it's like, a 36-year-old guy who is in the prime of his career has died suddenly, and
Has
that's
four
very
children.
tragic, and has four
Like,
children and is
yeah.
engaged. It's very sad. It's very upsetting that he has passed away. It's very, very sad. And you cannot, to like now say, well, everything he did was awesome. That's not true. And to some people, maybe some people thought it was like the greatest stuff ever. Maybe thought it was very compelling. And yeah, some of his stuff was compelling when it wasn't related to pro wrestling, as he was a very creative guy. But it is hard to talk about, because it is in one way kind of weird to talk about somebody that you want to praise for being very creative, but at the same time, I'm thinking about that Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. I'm thinking about his matches with like Goldberg and all
The
this
Randy Orton
lights out
match.
match, the
The
Randy
Randy
Orton
Orton
match,
match.
where
Actually, wait, which Randy Orton
Alexa
match?
Bliss
Because there's several.
stuff, it's all very not good. But of course, none of that matters, because somebody died. And it's very sad and it's very unfortunate. And no, nobody wanted to see this happen. But when you have to reflect critically upon his career, you can go he's such a creative person, but a lot of his stuff in pro wrestling, it didn't work a lot. Some of it did, some of it didn't. And we just listed off a bunch of stuff that didn't.
Yeah, I do think that the 2014 period, after you get past the Daniel Bryan feud, which was arguably his best singles match, you have the 6-man at Elimination Chamber, and then you have the match with John Cena at
That was great.
WrestleMania. And you have that period there. It's like, all right, you've made a new star now. And then it was a series of like missed opportunities where they just I think one of the big things is that stable of those three. That should have been it for like a solid year or two. The fact that the White family, the Rowan and Luke Harper in that original iteration never won the tag titles is completely baffling. It wouldn't be until they were the Bludgeon Brothers that they'd win the fucking things. But they as the White family should have been champion, and they were in NXT. And it was just a case of like by the time that you got to the Undertaker match the next year, they'd already done so much damage. They had already broken them apart, and there was a certain thing with Bray and the aura that was lost, because part of what made the aura work was the fact that he was meant to be this cult leader. He had these followings, and they would bring them back together again, and then you'd have Braun Strowman. That they were so like chopped up and shifted around, and my strongest memories of Bray Wyatt is that first like year or so where you had just those three just kind of firing on all cylinders. And again, didn't always work, and they'd already be starting to lean into the spooky stuff. But yeah, look, obviously someone who was very, very creative, as you said, a very unique stance on pro wrestling. And I was curious to see what this Wyatt 6 stable would have been. And
I mean, like, I didn't think the stuff was working, but I wanted to see where it went.
Yeah.
Because Bray Wyatt, when number 10 is a very creative person, and I wanted to see what the end game was.
Yeah.
And if I didn't think that the stuff already being presented wasn't all that great.
So rest in peace, Jesus,
Yes.
rest in peace, Wyndham Rotunda, 36, far too soon.
Yeah.
And yeah,
absolutely.
I guess we'll leave it at that. While I could ask you for like your wrestler and match and promotions of the month, it feels like it's not really worth it this month, considering the Funk and Bray news and whatnot. So I think we'll leave it at there. And all I'll say is, go say hello to your loved ones. Let them know that you love them. Let them know that you think about them. And we'll leave it there for another installment of the Grap Up. Thank you so much for listening as always. Next month we'll be talking about All Out, which has already happened. And I'm sure there'll be 3,000 other things that happen between now and then. So yes, so stay safe, stay sane, and yeah, we'll see you again next time for the Grap Up. Bye.
All right.